Throughout history, we speak about so many wars. If you were to go to the average American high school, the majority of the room would know about wars such as World War One and Two, the American Civil War, and the American Revolution. Students get so much exposure towards certain wars and topics, but when talking about the Rwandan genocide, there is a very good chance that the average classroom would have no idea what you are talking about. The atrocities committed and lives that were lost were so drastically high and devastating that many question why most of the public does not know more about this event. For 2 months in the middle of 1944, there was a genocide committed by the Hutus against the Tutsis in Rwanda. Though about 500,000 to 2 million people were murdered during this time, people around the world still do not really know about this terrible event. Before going into depth about the tragic event, let's talk a little bit about Rwanda's history. This genocide did not occur out of thin air. There was a history of violence between the Hutus and the Tutsis for a very long time. Throughout history, there was always a defined line between the two, and when Rwanda was a kingdom, the Tutsis had the job of handling the cattle, and the Hutus worked below them in agriculture. The Tutsis for a very long time were the ones always in power, even though they were not the majority population in Rwanda. This angered the Hutus, there was a lasting subtle tension between the two groups. This tension grew so much worse when Belgium colonized Rwanda. Since the Tutsis were traditionally taller, had fairer skin, and had more European qualities, the Belgians strongly favored the Tutsis over the Hutus. The Belgians not only started to favor the Tutsis, but even went as far as to measure each and every person in Rwanda and gave them identification cards defining whether or not they were Hutu or Tutsi, given their outward appearance. The Hutus were forced to do hard labor for the Belgians, and the ones overseeing the Hutus' duties were the Tutsis. Because of this, the Tutsi were the much more favored race in the eyes of the Belgians. The Tutsis were given advantages for education, housing, jobs, and much more. After World War II, there was a sudden change of who was in power. The Belgians were informed that the land was going to be given back to the Rwandan people, and the majority population would end up ruling Rwanda. Since the Hutus were the majority of the country, the Belgians switched from favoring the Tutsis to favoring the Hutus. Because of this, in the 60s, Rwanda Urundi split up into two countries, Rwanda and Burundi. The Tutsis had fled north to Burundi to escape from the Hutus. But then the Tutsis found themselves formed a small army and committed a smaller genocide against the Hutus that led to about 200,000 Hutu deaths. All in all, Rwanda was not in good shape at all. With two very divided groups with drastically different points of view, it was hard to see eye to eye on almost anything. Going into 1993, a new president was elected for Rwanda named Juvenal Habyarimana. Though he was Hutu, he was very passionate about bringing the two groups together to form one country. Though it was a good idea, on April 6, 1994, the plane with the president was shot down and the spark of hope in Rwanda had died. This was the final straw for the Hutus, and it is this which sparked the Rwandan genocide. All of a sudden, people who were once neighbors and friends had started to turn against one another and commit absolutely horrendous acts with no punishments. There was evidence of a genocide occurring in Rwanda, but the UN had not helped at all. The only reasons parts of the UN had stepped in was to protect certain people who were getting affected by this war. European countries and America saw that Rwanda and its people were in dire need of someone to step in, but no one did effectively help the people in their state of chaos. No outside country made any real effort to help stop the genocide and for the killing to stop. Maybe if a country had decided to get into the middle and try to end the killing, the numbers of casualties could have been much lower than the estimated number. Not only was the UN's involvement not effective in any way, but even going in before the war, there was a new brainwashing technique the Hutu government used on its people. Paid by the Hutu government, anyone who had access to the radio was able to hear about how the Tutsis were such terrible people and referred to them as cockroaches. This was how the Hutus gained such a large hatred for the Tutsis. The Hutu government had brainwashed its people into thinking that the Tutsis did not deserve to live, and because of the way Hutu people were oppressed in the past, this made their acts just. Because of this large influence that is technology, people were able to become brainwashed by the government, not by going outside or the forest, but by turning on the radio. Technology is so scary, and you can see how technology can influence such a great group of people. Though your average classroom won't have a lot of ideas as to what the Rwanda genocide was, I hope you came out of this knowing much more of this country had to go through.